All right, what's up, guys? It's Kyle with another episode of Unlocking Your Inner Strength. Today, very special guest, as I've been telling some of you, I have Dax Moy. Dax has been a great resource to me, a great friend, a great role model. And Dax is the creator of Mind Map, Body Map, amongst many other things. So, Dax, thanks for taking the time to be with me this morning, buddy.
My sincere pleasure. Always a pleasure to spend time with someone who's rocking kind of the beard that I'm aspiring to grow into.
Very cool,
Yeah,
man.
see,
So,
mine's just been turning a bit white on the tips recently. So kind of you've got the whole kind of white panda thing
I,
going on down there.
yeah, all different
I've
colors,
thrown you off
man.
your game now.
Man.
You didn't know that was going to come at you. You're thrown a bit now, aren't you?
So, where you're at, it's actually not the morning. You're in the UK right now, right?
Indeed, yeah. I got back just over a week ago. So I was in Thailand for 6 weeks before that. So, but yeah, back in the UK, and it's a very nice blue sky day today. So yeah, pretty cool.
Good. And when you go to Thailand a couple times a year, correct?
I go to Thailand as much as I possibly can. So the trip I just took was my 70th, 70. And so yeah, kind of I've been going since my son is 22. I've been going since he was 2 years old. So 70 trips in 2 years, in 20 years. That was quite a bit.
Wow. And then you go most of the time by yourself there?
No, a bit of a mix. So my 22-year-old son, he's had 40 trips out there with me. So kind of the family have done just over half of the total number of trips. But then I run my retreats, my one-to-one retreats, my group retreats like the Guru Project and other things like that out there. So, kind of I haven't for a couple of years now since just before COVID was the last one I did. So we're looking at next year being the reinitiation and the remake of all the retreats out in China, which would be fantastic. I was about to say it's my second home, but it's really my spiritual home. It's kind of I feel more like myself when I'm in Thailand than I do when I'm back here in the UK.
How did that come to be? Like, why Thailand?
Um, I think being in the tsunami's probably got a lot to do with it. But I fell in love with the place as soon as there's two places that have actually there's three places that have really taken my breath away and made me really kind of like feel emotional just arriving there and actually seeing it with my own eyes. So one of those was Thailand. First, walking onto a powder white beach with trees growing all the way down to the sand line and all that kind of stuff. The people, the culture, the food, the weather, the Buddhism and all that behind it. But just the place was magical the first time I was there. I got really choked up. Another time was in first time I drove into Sedona at sunset, and like obviously Sedona is all red anyway, but it was a really red sunset. It was like some weird mystical experience kind of driving in there. And another one was in the Himalayas. So there's been three times that kind of specific locations have really choked me up and made me feel really connected to myself. Kind of feel connection to the places, but the reason I feel that level of connection is that when I went to those places, it really connected me to something in myself, and that stayed with me ever since.
Very cool, man. And I know just going back through the mind map course, the mastery course, I was just going back through the environment section and how you talk about the environment is the greatest predictor of human behavior. So, I mean, I think that's pretty neat, man, that the best environments for you and you go there to kind of like when you go to Thailand and maybe Red Rock or Sedona, but when you go to Thailand, is it more for physical rejuvenation or spiritual insight, or is it everything?
It's everything, but I do spend a lot more time there looking after myself physically than I mean. It's not like I don't look after myself physically here anyway, but I think the bigger difference is when I'm out in Thailand, I do a lot more walking. Like so, I do on average kind of two training sessions a day, like actual what most people would call workouts. But other than my workouts, I'm probably not very active in the UK. Like they're training sessions, but I don't do the low level like go for an hour or two's walk. In Thailand, I'm walking all the time. I'm cranking out 25, 30,000 steps a day. Kind of just walking up and down, going to see things. Kind of I hire mopeds when I need them, like if I want to go for a further journey up and down the island to go and see something. But most of the time, it's just on foot everywhere, and it's that low level activity versus training, which I think it has so much of the health benefits. Training is great, but training is a relatively modern thing. You know this yourself, right? Kind of it wasn't until kind of mid 70s, 80s that kind of it started to become mainstream after aerobics started to kick in and running and stuff like that. People didn't really run in the 60s. And whilst there were things like the occasional strongmen and bodybuilders, most of the public didn't actually do what we now call exercise. They just had active lives. And I think as much as going to the gym is fantastic, and I've had a personal training studio, you've got a gym, all that kind of stuff. As much as owning them and kind of encouraging people into that kind of activity is fantastic, it's always a surrogate. It's always a kind of a step in for the other things that we arguably should be doing in our lives, but aren't. So when I go to Thailand, I do a lot of just low. I still train. I still train twice a day, but I'm also doing a lower level activity and just being on my feet and swimming and walking and doing a bit of stand up paddle or attempting to surf but falling flat on my butt, falling in the water all the time. I'm not very good at surfing for some reason. I've never been able to master that one. But yeah, it's just being active and trying things and climbing up big hills and mountains and all that kind of stuff. And I think it does make a difference, and it makes a difference. In that, whilst you could still do some of those things competitive, you could walk faster from A to B if you wanted, or try and get up a mountain a bit faster, or try and paddle across a bay a little bit faster. There's a natural tendency for those of us who have that competitive training streak to always wanting to be, trying to beat something. But actually, when you're in those environments and you just let yourself go into just enjoying the environment. And so I'm out here on the stand-up paddleboard, just mooching along, or I'm just walking up a hill or a mountain, and you're not trying to beat the record. I think there's something that clears a bit of space in your mind, because I think competition is fantastic, and I'm an extremely competitive person. I always have been. But I think that when you're competitive, you're not present. You're thinking to the future, like where do I want to be next? What time do I want to get there? How much do I want to improve on this lift? How many more reps do I want to get? But when you're actually just engaging in activity, you're present. You're just like, and you tend to be looking at your environment. Wow, that's a beautiful view of the sea from 1,000 feet below me. Oh, that's a beautiful mountaintop, or whatever. You're just present. And I think there's a lot to be said for that most of us aren't getting, and most of us are so engaged in exercise that we downgrade the importance of activity. I think activity is probably more important than exercise.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant way to put it. And I always, along similar lines, when people are here locally, we talk about just walking. I said, look, if you can get outside and walk, get outside and walk. It's always going to beat walking on a treadmill, but it's not to the same effect as what you're immersed in this nature where you're at. But I think that's a brilliant insight, Dax.
Yeah.
Activity versus exercise. Now, when you're there,
If you think about it, but if you think about that historically, right? If like how did cultures stay so healthy before the advent of like modern society, right? They were just active. They were doing stuff, right? And they were spending a lot of time in nature, and the kind of whether you were a farmer working your field, whether you were a kind of an outdoor laborer, like even if on a to a degree on a dirty construction site, but you're kind of as you start to rise up 50 stories above, you start to see the whole city and the whole vista and the panorama. Like you're seeing things, you're doing things that aren't about just cranking out the reps. And I love cranking out reps. Like I just told you, I literally came from the gym. I'm still sweating now. Right? I love cranking out the reps, but I think there's a lot to be said for giving yourself the opportunity not to do that, and also to just be just be present with your environment. Just kind of make the goal to spend time in the environment. I think most people tend to skip things like just going for a walk because they're like, oh, it takes too long, kind of. I'll go out and I'll walk 2 miles, but that's going to take like kind of 45 minutes or whatever. That's too long. I could have run 5 miles in that time, right? Yeah, but that wasn't the point. The point wasn't to just grind yourself, and try and run that distance faster and faster. The point was to actually be outdoors, be in nature, and be alone with your own thoughts. Because when you're pushing up against your limits, there are no thoughts anymore other than pushing up against the limit. You can't kind of contemplate life for your role in life, the universe, and everything while you're trying for a PB. It doesn't work. They're kind of they're antagonistic to each other. So I think there's a lot to be said for that, and I need to remind myself of that because I'm not as good at it back in the UK as I am when I go away. It's like the environment flips a switch, and I'm like, yes, I'm in this environment, and all day is just about enjoying the environment. It's not about anything else but saying, oh, I love being here. But that's kind of also a metaphor for life itself. Like, do you love being here? Kind of, do you love being here, but do you love being here? Like, and that's I think the two are inextricably linked.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties into what we were just chatting about. Maybe getting into goal setting, but like being here and being I always catch myself, right, like in the process of this, right, the ego or whatever we call it wants to look ahead to the next thing. It's like,
Yeah,
it's like a disease of the mind, right? Like it's just constantly what's next. When it's like, no, this is it, man. I'm talking to Dax Moy right now. Like this is, to me, this is
right.
a highlight. And how do you deal with that? Like, how do you coach your clients, I should say, when they have that and they're setting goals, right? But they just want to keep looking forward to the next thing. Like, how do we get people to enjoy the process?
Because that's the dopamine addiction, right? That's the interesting thing that dopamine is not about achieving the goal. Dopamine is about pursuit. So we're addicted to pursuit. Like once you achieve a goal, you would imagine that like life is going to be absolutely fantastic, and you go, "Ah, oh, this is brilliant! I've achieved my goal." That sense of achieving your goal only gives you the uplift for sometimes mere minutes, and then immediately your brain gets worried, and it's like, "Oh God, I've achieved the goal. What comes next? I need another higher mountain to climb. I need it." And that's fine, right? But just understand what's going on. It's dopamine addiction, and dopamine is a driver for the chase. It's a driver for the pursuit. It's not a driver for the accomplishment. So if you're not careful, you can continuously find yourself in the chasing of things, and never getting to the point where the actual accomplishment means anything to you. And that's why the enjoyment of the process does become so important, because dopamine addiction, dopamine, that kind of chase drive can often mean that your part in the journey right now is being overlooked all the time. It's like it doesn't matter what I'm going through right now. Yeah. The environment looks beautiful, great mountains, great, but I'm supposed to be at this checkpoint, or I'm supposed to get to that place, at least 30 seconds faster than I did it last time I ran up the mountain. So, and before you know it, you're not on the mountain anymore. You're on the kind of the dopamine treadmill. I think a lot of people are like that. They're on that dopamine treadmill. It's like it doesn't matter how far you go, or how high you climb, or how many more reps you get, or what your PB is, or how much more money you make, or anything else. You're like, it really doesn't matter, right? Because all I'm looking for is the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. When I get it, I'm going to be on the next thing. So it's like a treadmill. And so, like, a big part of that is to remind people that every goal you have is a search for a feeling. Every goal, right? Like, you want a bigger house. Why do you want a bigger house? Well, you've got your intellectual ideas about it. Well, it'd be great because then I could have a studio, and I could have a room that I do my recordings in, and the kids could have a playroom, and I could have a gym, right? So that's all our intellectual kind of things about it. But okay, so your kids have that, and you have this, and you've got your recording room, and you've got a pool, and you've got this. But why is that important to you? And when you keep digging and you keep digging, you go, well, it'll make me feel successful, right? It will let other people see that I'm successful, and you keep ripping it back and you go, well, what is it? What is that core essence of every goal I'm pursuing? There's a feeling that you want, and if you're not careful, you can spend your life chasing for the thing but never getting the feeling. Right. The flip side is most of the feelings that you want, you can have now. You can have today. You could feel successful today. You could feel happy today. How do you feel successful today? Just by reflecting on how far you've already come from something. Right? I'm not quite where I really, really want to be, but look how far I've come. Look what I've managed to accomplish. Look at the experiences I've had. Look at whatever, right? Kind of, you can reflect on success can be created today. You don't have to wait until you got the six, seven, eight-figure income, the house, the car, the pool. You can have the thing today, and I think most of us forget that. And I'm, kind of, without being a hypocrite, I'm pointing at myself here as well. There are days where I forget that. really, really pissed at things. I'm like, I've really let my business go off the boil for the last year or so. I've really let that happen. I shouldn't have done that. Like, and it's, hold on. Look, even though I've let my business go off the boil, I've still got more money, kind of to keep me safe and keep my family fed and everything else than most people would hope to earn this year. And I've still got that plus sitting in the bank, right? Oh, right. Okay. Well, let me be grateful for that. Okay. I've got, there's a new car that I want, but right now I can't justify spending the money on it. But yeah, I've actually got two nice cars. Right? You can have most of the feelings that you want if you bring yourself back to the recognition of what's already there, rather than getting on that dopamine treadmill again and ignoring everything around you and saying, no, I can only be happy when I get to the next checkpoint, when I get to the next thing. And I think a lot of people are trapped in that. They're trapped in the next thing. Just remember, every goal is a search for a feeling. Whenever you set a goal, attach the feeling to it, but then ask yourself, how can I have that feeling today in some small way? How can I have it today? And every day that I engage in the pursuit of this, how can I give myself that feeling? Does that make sense?
I love that. How can I feeling? Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I was going to ask you based on that, like when we bring an attitude, I guess an attitude of gratitude towards the process, has it been your experience that stuff is manifests easier for us than if we're always just searching for the next thing? Like when we already feel successful, we already feel happy. Have you found that kind of attracts the I guess the manifestation of the stuff into your life easier?
Yeah. And so I've gone kind of full circle on this, back and forth, right? Kind of, I used to be a big, manifesting used to be a big part of my kind of mental approach to these things. And then I went the other way and went, no, no, it's what you do, and then it's what you think, and then it's what you do, and it's what you think. And so I've gone back and forward over the years, probably like most people, right? And so to me, it's a lot clearer. Manifestation is an outpouring of what you think sometimes, right? Because what you're thinking and feeling is going to sponsor what you do, and what you do is going to sponsor your results, right? So kind of, I don't think I could just sit here and kind of wish $1 million into my bank account and that's just going to appear, right? I think I can sit here and think of $1 million idea, and even that $1 million idea isn't going to manifest into my bank account until I get off my butt and I go and do the things that make other people say, well, I'll give you, kind of my proportion of the $1 million toward that. Thanks very much. I'll give you 2 grand for mind map, and I'll give you that for that, and I'll get right. And I go, right. Well, if what I feel and what I think and what I do are in alignment, then the results come. Right. So I think that's what manifestation looks like. Right. Putting those things into alignment. Um, in terms of actually creating that, it's it, it's really our emotions. It's really our kind of a combination of our emotions, our feelings, our thoughts that actually kind of start to create the ball rolling. That put us into the place where we can bring together all of the thought machinery that makes things possible. Right. So when you're in constant pursuit mode is for, sometimes it can be exciting. Like if you don't have too much on your plate in life, and life is pretty good in most areas, being in pursuit can be exhilarating. It can be like, oh yeah, I'm kind of really excited because I'm going for this. If you're just coming out of COVID lockdown, you spent all your life savings, kind of you haven't managed to get your clients back. You're not sure how you're going to pay your mortgage and the rent on your facility and all that kind of stuff, right? Being in constant pursuit mode can actually become overwhelmingly stressful. Overwhelmingly stressful trips your amygdala. It sends your cortisol levels up. It shuts down your prefrontal cortex for creating new ideas and concepts and processes and systems and strategies, right? And instead, there's this gap between what you want to happen and the experience that you're actually having, and the gap itself creates a whole bunch of stress and threat for you. Oh God, I'm so far from where I want to be, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? There's a place I really, really want to go to, but I don't seem to have the brain power at the moment, like the time, the effort, the energy, the motivation, the inspiration, the ideas, the whatever, the support for me to actually go and bring that idea to fruition. Therefore, I'm in more stress than if I didn't have the idea in the first place. Because if you didn't have the idea in the first place, you'd just say, this is how life is. In other words, you'd be present, right? This is how life is, and I've got to deal with it somehow, right? When you had that little blip of how it could be, and we could do that, and then you experience yourself not acting on it or not bringing that to fruition, that becomes extremely stressful. And the stress in itself becomes a threat that sends your cortisol levels up, and it stops you computing and analyzing and figuring out the next steps. And this is how we get caught in these kind of self-destructive cycles. So again, how do we get out of that? We come back to, how do I want to feel? Because if you can bring yourself back to the sponsoring feeling will create the sponsoring thoughts. The sponsoring thoughts will create the sponsoring actions. Right? And kind of that's how it works.
Hmm. It's funny because that's what I've, got a lot of stuff going on over here, right? New business and the other businesses. And that's exactly how I've been feeling, that gap. And then it almost leads to paralysis. So I like what you're saying, just the sponsoring feeling. What do I want with the sponsoring feeling? And then feeling that now rather than this gap, right? Where it makes you
Yeah.
feel down and you don't take any action.
Right. And just to be clear, it doesn't have the way I'm saying how trying to get that feeling, right? It doesn't have to be about the thing that you want to get the feeling about. It's good if you can, right? Let's say it's about your business, but let's say because you let's say you're doing all this work because you want to feel successful, you want to feel some sense of freedom or whatever, right? Or some sense of impact. You go, right, well, in this area of my life right now, it's not propelling at the pace I'd like it to. It's not quite moving in the direction. Okay, where else in my life can I experience a sense of freedom, a sense of fulfillment, a sense of fun or whatever, right? Where can I get that now, today, right? And it might be taking your kids to the pool. It might be, kind of going for a hike. It might be any number of things. We go, no, if success is really about a search for a feeling, does my brain really care that the feeling has to come from my business? Or would it be equally as happy if it came from something else? Go and get it from something else. Because once you have the feeling, you're going to open up to experiencing that feeling probably in the business anyway, right? You come back from something absolutely refreshed and reinvigorated and like, oh, well, like kind of, that was really good. And you've got a big smile on your face. Now the sponsoring thoughts and feelings for the other area that was causing you the stress and the struggle, the sponsoring thoughts have changed. And most people don't do that. They keep, this isn't working, smash my head against it. This isn't working, smash my head. And obviously, every time you keep smashing your head against the wall enough, you're going to get a headache, right? Right. So, and most people stay. They go, I'm not getting the feeling out that I want out of my business, for example, and so I just need to keep smashing my head against the business until it works. Right. Oh, okay. Go and get the feeling you want from something else, and then bring that feeling back and loan it to the area that you're having the struggles with. And most people don't do that. Right? They go like, no, I haven't got time to go to the pool kids. I haven't got time to go and climb the mountain. I haven't got time to do this because this area of my business isn't working. Well, the thing is, that area of your business isn't gonna suddenly start working because you decided to coop yourself up in your office and brood all afternoon and get nothing done relative to it, right? And the reason you can't get anything done is because your prefrontal cortex isn't online because you're stressed. Sometimes the best thing we can do is stop working on the thing that we really feel we need to be working on and go and find the feeling somewhere else.
Love that. That is brilliant insight, man. That's why you're the best at this. And is that something like I'm sure you learned that just through going through that many times yourself, probably, right?
Absolutely. And I kind of had to learn that, and I'm still in the process of learning it, right? To be brutally honest, because it's something I forget at times, kind of, and even quite recently, I had, oh God, and it was going away to Thailand. I was actually part of this process. And like, hold on, the feeling that I want, I can find most easily if I go to Thailand. I go there. I do what I need to do. I start to get that feeling. When I get the feeling, I get the thoughts. When I get the thoughts, I start doing things differently. When I start doing things differently, I get the thing that I'm brooding over not having. And kind of obviously off the back of PTSD and stuff like that, that became a really important part. Because PTSD, you get into very, very deep rumination. You just sit in the problems, and you keep analyzing the problems and why is this happening and what's going on and what does this mean, and then you start to catastrophize about, oh God, what if my brain stays like this forever? What if these are the thoughts that I'm going to wake up to and go to sleep to every single day for the rest of my life? And then you get into that cycle. And so, kind of my trips to places like Sedona and the Himalayas and Thailand, all of these are very, very strongly related to reminding myself that actually, the thing that you really, really want, you can have much easier than you think you can. It's just that it may not be through the model that you're forcing yourself into thinking that, oh no, my sense of fulfillment, my sense of happiness, my sense of wealth, my sense of success has to come from my business, and it has to come from my business this year. Like, oh, okay, there's a lot we can do to influence it, but we can't control it, right? Because influence and control are two completely different things, right? Most of us are digging ourselves into these holes because of things that we can't control, but we think we should. Whereas instead we can say, I can't control it, I can't control it, I can't control it, because we can't control anything really. But what can I influence, and what can I influence today? Okay, I can't influence that 100 people are going to sign up for Mind Map this month. I can't influence. Oh, sorry, I can't control that. I can influence it, but I can't control it. But at the moment, my sense of influence over that doesn't seem to be there because I'm not in the right part of my brain to be that creative and put my content out regularly and do this. Okay, so why aren't you doing that? Because I'm feeling a certain way. I'm feeling a bit dark. I'm feeling a bit lost. I'm feeling a bit kind of imbalanced. Okay, how do you get that feeling? Jump on a plane, go to Thailand, and go and do what you do. Right now you're out in Thailand, you start to feel the way that you feel when you're normally creating content and making an impact for people, right? And then that's how it all starts to come back together. And I'm using Thailand as an example just because it's what works for me. I'm not suggesting everyone has to spend thousands and thousands of dollars or pounds or euros or yen or whatever to jump on planes and travel to the other side of the world. Maybe some people can't do that right now. It might be financial, it might be any number of reasons, right? So, but what's the next thing that you can lean into that gives you? Because we're only talking about like a thimbleful. Like we don't have to have a bucket full of that feeling every day. We guzzle it down in the mornings, and that keeps us going. Like, how can I get a thimbleful of that feeling today? And that's where I don't know if you read one of the posts that I did recently. I was talking about the three beautifuls, right? And the three beautifuls is kind of see something beautiful at the start of my day, hear something beautiful, read something beautiful, right? So it might be a sunset or a sunrise. It might be pictures of my grandchildren, my kids. It might be any number of things, right? I want to see something beautiful. I want to hear something beautiful. It might be a piece of music that really uplifts me. It might be a kind of a Buddhist mantra being chanted, or a Hindu mantra, or something like that. It might be a talk from anyone like Neil Donald Walsh, or it might be, I love Alan Watts, so kind of listening to one of his talks, right? And I find them beautiful. They're intellectual, but they're really beautiful to me. I'm like, wow, that's really good. I'm thinking about that, right? Or it might be kind of see, hear, and read. Like, so it might be a piece of poetry. It might be a passage from a holy or spiritual scripture of some kind. I read all of them, so I'm not just caught up in one religion. It might be, usually, very often it's poetry though, like Hafiz or Rumi or someone like that will write something, piece of poetry, and it will really get me thinking. And sometimes that beautiful thing that I'm reading will be something that I've written previously, and it's like I wrote it for myself with the full knowledge that one day I'm going to need to read this, right? And I'll go back through. I have thousands of my posts inside of notes, and I'll read through, and I'll go, wow, I wrote that in 2017. Today I needed that message. Today I needed to read that because that was the exact. So very often when you see me posting stuff on Facebook, I'm posting the stuff that I needed to hear. I just happened to be sharing it with you, right? But I needed to hear it. In fact, that's true of most of my content. Most of my content. Sometimes I'm a bit of a marketer. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I need to fill a course and get that in there and get some people to this. But most of my content that's not geared towards selling something is they're posts that I've created because I needed to hear myself say it and kind of go deeper into defining an idea and hear that from the horse's mouth, so to speak. But a year or two from now, I'll be reading that again and go, wow, that's the exact message I needed today. How did a part of my brain know that 3 years down the line, I was going to need that message more than I've ever needed anything before. And that's, again, that's leaning into the idea of the search for a feeling, because those are the things that give me the feelings that I want to feel. So those three beautifuls, that's what I mean by the thimble thought, right? You kind of by read something, see something, hear something. It might be less than 10 minutes of my morning routine. I can sometimes it's like a single line of something that I've read. Like, wow, yeah, that's beautiful. That's a really beautiful thing. Like what I've just read, and then that sets the hedonic tone, the kind of the thing in your brain that kind of reminds you that life is okay. It sets that for the start of the day.
That's awesome, man. I'm always thinking about morning routines and all that, and simple stuff, especially even for my clients. But that's great, man. The three beauties and putting that into
Yeah,
play, man. I think it's
it changes everything, because it reminds you that life is better than you might have been imagining it. Right? Because
yeah,
if you can find three beautiful things every morning, right, kind of that's powerful. Right? Every single morning of your life is find three beautiful things, and it's just reminding yourself to, if you're going to spend your life in pursuit of anything, isn't that a worthy thing to spend your life in pursuit of? Beauty, right? We can chase money, we can chase a physique, we can chase a PB on a bar and all the rest of it. That's all cool. I'm not saying for people not to do that, but of everything, if you go back to this idea that every goal is a search for a feeling, well, beautiful brings you to feelings very quickly. Right? I've missed it up. My eyes have that first time I drove in, very very first time I drove into Sedona, and the sky itself was blood red, and all the mountains themselves all around me were red. Like literally, I teared up. I was driving in. I've driven in from Vegas to there, and I completely teared up. It was just, I wasn't sad or anything. It was like it was literally awe inspiring. It was like, wow, and I just we can we can find that beauty a lot easier than most of us realize.
yeah, yeah. You have such a good way of saying it, Dax. How like isn't that a worthy pursuit? If that's it's such a different way of looking at the pursuit, right? It is go for the
Right.
feeling, and then the thimble. So like you're talking about the thimble, right? And doing stuff in the morning. And I know I've never done the program, but I know Strategic Coach, what Dan Sullivan recommends is like one free day a week. I think that's probably trying to serve the same purpose, right?
Yeah.
Just taking a break from that stuff. But it's so hard, for to break that train. You always think you're busy, busy, busy. And I do that with the family sometimes. My wife will say, you put us second most of the time. And it hurts when she says that. And I'm like, this is so stupid. They're like the most important thing. Like, it's right in
Yeah.
front of me, it's right there. The beauty of my children and
So,
my wife.
obviously, my clients have been, among my clients have been some of the most successful people in the world. Actors and A-listers and Grammy and Emmy award winning people, and like royalty and all kinds of stuff. And it's the same. It's the same thing with them, right? Because they've got all the things that we all aspire to. They've got the second and third homes, the yacht, the helicopter, the big bank account, the ability to go anywhere, to be on TV shows and all kinds of stuff. But like they've got impact, influence, and income. They've got all of it, right? And very often they're still not happy. And so why is that? It's because they sacrificed beautiful for the pursuit of other stuff. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I would love half the stuff that those people have got. But what I found over the years of coaching them was that some of them were they were the unhappiest people I've met, and you would never know it. But and for many of us who are still involved in our own pursuit, we're like, well, that's bullcrap. Like, how can you have all of that and still be unhappy? And it's really really simple, right? It's easy. You and I, we believe that when we get to whatever our mythical figure is, right? Kind of whether it's got 6 zeros, 7 zeros, 8 zeros. Whenever we get that, we're like, yes, life is going to be so much better when I get there, right? These guys have already got there, and they are still not connected to their lives in any way, shape, or form, right? And they spend half their life in fear of losing it. And the biggest thing for most of them is that they don't feel enough, right? They feel like a fraud. They feel like, and they're living their life terrified of being caught out for all of the skeletons in their closet that they kind of, oh, if people knew this about me, then all of this would go away. Because they haven't done any work on themselves. They haven't necessarily done the work on creating the feelings for themselves. What they've done is created a lifelong pursuit. Right? And kind of that's it. Just run, 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 run. Never stop. Just keep running for the next big thing, the next big thing, the next big thing, the next big, and that's what it looks like. And so most of the clients that I work with, the very first thing that kind of we do when we're looking at goals is look at these feelings that you want. Like, what do you want to feel and what do you not want to feel anymore? Okay, first things first. Like, let's start taking away the sources of the things that make you feel the way you don't want to. Stop. If you don't like appearing on certain shows or going to certain countries, or never mind the fact that you can fill a football stadium with an audience or an arena with an audience. Okay, if you don't like being in that particular country when you do these shows, don't go. Don't run it anymore. Right? Lose the money, but enjoy life. And go there and go, oh God, I hate it. Like every time I come back from there, I hate myself a bit more because I've sold out. Well, stop selling out. Right? So stop doing the things that you don't want to do, particularly when you don't have to. This is the thing. Like if you reach that level of success and wealth and you don't have to, why are you doing it? Right? One of the other things that I have them do is structure their lives around the things that are most important to them first. Okay, build it around that. Like, and so let's take it away from the ultra wealthy and kind of bring it back to, just what you could say is more normal people, right? Okay, well, plan your week around the time that you want off first. Okay, and not just the time that you want off. Like I want to find an hour for training. Like when are you at your best training? And if you say, you know what, like 2 p.m. I do my very best workouts. Like that's when I'm at my peak. Trouble is, I've got clients who want to come and see me at 2 and all the rest of it. What you're then saying is, I'm always going to feel that my workouts were substandard. I'm always going to feel that I've never quite pushed myself, or that I never quite got what I wanted from a training. Okay, flip it. So I'm going to build my training is going to be at 2 o'clock every day. Clients want to work with me, they're going to have to find a way around those times because I'm not available at 2 anymore. Cool. Okay. I want to have, so for me, here's an example. When I first started my PT studio, and I'm sure it's very similar for you, I worked 7 days a week. And it wasn't 9 to 5 like most people talk about. It was 5 to 9, right? I was the first one in. I was the last one out. I was kind of putting the keys in the door at the start of the day, making sure everything was set up for my team when they came in, right? And then working with my first client at 6:37 in the morning. And then, starting to make good money, and you end up on a slippery slope because every hour is money. And somebody says, I'm not finishing work till late this evening. Could you do it at 8 p.m. as a one-off? 8 p.m. means you're finishing at 9. You go, okay, yeah, cool, I'll do it as a one-off. And then another week goes, it's happened again. Before you know it, you're working 5 to 9, right? So I'm like, okay, like that was what had happened for me, and I worked that way for several years. And I was like, no, I'm going to get my Sundays back. I'm taking Sunday back, right? 7 days a week is ridiculous. I took Sunday back, and that was to be with the family. And it was like, no, I'm going to take from Saturday lunchtime back. I was like, okay, now I'm going to stop going in at 5. My first appointment is not ever going to be earlier than 7. And my last appointment is never going to be later than 4. And then I whittled it down to, okay, I'm gonna stop working at 2 p.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Right, and Tuesday and Thursday I'll work a little bit later. And then gradually whittling down and building my muscles for saying no to the things that didn't serve me. Most people have built their muscles for saying yes to the things that don't serve them. Right, and like. Yeah, and then there's almost this like perverse pride that you outwork everybody. I'm there before everyone. I'm the first one in. I'm the last one out. I work the hardest. I build the most clients. And I still manage to get my workouts in, right? But if you listen to the voice that's going on in your head, your voice is complaining and bitching and whining and moaning about it most of the time. That's not the feeling you want. You go, now how do I? And again, it only has to be one step at a time. It might be 1 hour at a time across if across the course of the next 52 weeks you started nibbling an hour here and nibbling, a year from now, your working week is going to look really different, and it's going to be filled with the things that are most important to you first. I don't work Wednesday evenings because that's when that's family night, and I don't do this at the weekends because that's family time, and then aside from family time, these are my times. right? And those are all factored in. And then there's time for doing this and there's time for doing that. And then after all of that, okay, how do I put my earning hours into this now? And what you'll find is if you build your time around a series of constraints, because most of us are kind of we think of constraints as being these kind of things that are going to hold us back. Oh crap, that means less hours. No, if you build around these set piece constraints, but you say to yourself, okay, I want all of those things, and I want my income to remain either the same or go up. You start to create very, very, very different ideas about how you can earn the money, about how you can make the impact, right? If you don't do that, all your only real goal, you see, like most coaches and trainers' incomes that I've looked at over the years, they've only gone up because they've worked longer and harder, right? In other words, they're not really being paid more; they're just working more hours to be paid more, right? It's like kind of they're pro rata. It's kind of like pro rata. It's only gone up because you've worked more hours, but that takes away the quality of your life, and that takes away the sense of the feeling that you really, really, really want for yourself, which was for most of us. I've described it numerous times. We only really set up our businesses, and it's not just businesses. We only really take jobs, and we only really do anything because of four things: fun, freedom, fulfillment, and financial success. Right? Okay, and family comes in the fulfillment area mostly, right? But fun, right? Is what I'm doing fun? Is it contributing to my freedom? Is it fulfilling? And is it giving me the financial success? Is it paying me what I need to be paid in order to have the fun, the freedom, and the fulfillment? Because that's really the only purpose of the financial success, to contribute back, right? You go, as I earn this, it means I get more of those things. Unfortunately, right, most people do it the other way around. We say, okay, I'm going to get all the financial success and I'm going to mount all this money up so that I can go and have fun, freedom, and fulfillment. Right? The trouble is, as soon as you're first off, you're living a life without fun, freedom, or fulfillment, and secondly, the financial success never ever feels enough because now you're in a dopamine-driven chase to always earn more and more and more. Now is not the time, and here's not the place to take time off and spend it with the kids, or go on that trip, or have that adventure of a lifetime that you've always wanted, or get a French teacher to come to you twice a week and teach you how to speak fluent French. Whatever it is, whatever would be fulfilling and fun and freeing to you, now's not the time, and here's not the place. And so all we're left with is the dopamine-driven pursuit of what we say would be success, but that really isn't. So it's engineering our time so that the most important things are placed in first, and we build the financial part around that.
That is awesome, man. Got so many notes here. So it's just a reverse of what most people do, like you said,
Yeah,
right? In your time, and then you build
I'm
around
I'm
that.
um I'm probably, I've done really, really well for myself in my career over the years, really well. But amongst my peer group of other people who kind of like started out at the same time as me, and kind of worked with the same sort of like audiences as myself and all that, I'm probably the lowest earner of them all. Like people into multiple seven figures and stuff like that, right? I've never in a single year I've never breached the seven-figure mark, right? My highest ever earnings have been £723,000, right? That's the highest annual earning that I've made. That's mostly as a solopreneur, right? So kind of which is pretty good, and I got to keep most of that other than tax, right? But I get to keep most of that myself. But that's pretty good going. But there are guys out there that are actually making kind of multiple seven, and some I know that are making eight figures, right? The thing that I've noticed with those people is they live in bigger, flashier houses than me. They drive, grander cars than me, and they change every time the license plates change. They change to the new model and all that kind of stuff, right? Those same people, though, what I've also noticed is that they mostly have short weekend breaks to places like Vegas and all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm not knocking them for where they choose to go on their vacations. That's up to them. But my point is, for me, back in the day, I was really, really clear what success was and wasn't. And success for me was to be able to stand on the mountaintops and the beaches and in the jungles and the Arctic tundra and deserts and all that. Like, I was when I think back to kind of the story and the definition I told myself of what success looked like, it was never about the size of my house. It was never about having like a 4-car garage that was filled with all the latest gizmos and toys. It was never about having an indoor cinema or a bowling alley and all that kind of stuff, right? All that don't get me wrong. Like if somebody rocked up today and said, "Hey, do you want this? We're giving it away." I mean, yes, that'd be fantastic. But for me, success was never that. Success was the places I was going to go, the things I was going to do, the things I was going to see, the people that I was going to meet, right? And across the course of my lifetime, I've spent most of my wealth having those experiences. So I'm wealthy by most people's standards, but I'm not super wealthy. Right? I don't have millions and millions sitting in my bank account or anything like that, nowhere near it, right? Um, because most of the time, as you can imagine, with a family of 4 kids, that's 6 people every time you go. You're taking 70 trips to Thailand, and you're paying for 6 people to go every time. It's quite a lot of money, right? And you're hiring villas and apartments and all this kind of like. But that's for me. I always said that's what success would be. Where I was going to go, what I was going to do, what I was going to see, experience, so that before the light blinks out for the final time, before the very, very last time my eyes close, I go, when your life flashes before your eyes, I don't just see myself walking the halls of my big mansion or driving my flashy car. I see myself on every beach, every mountaintop, every jungle, every place. So I go, wow, I went to all these places. I did all these things. I had all these experiences. And again, so what does that come back to? It comes back to how you want to feel about yourself, because each one of those places is about feeling about myself and about my life. And I think a lot of people are missing out on that. They're pursuing things that don't give them the feelings, and they're trying to justify not having the feelings with the idea that one day we'll do all these things. And as we saw with kind of COVID and everything else, like kind of one day might not be there, but not just COVID, it can be anything, right? One day might not be there for you, like any number of reasons. I don't want this call to go all dark for all the ways that we could possibly die, but we're all very aware that life is precious; it can be taken away from you at any moment, and B, as far as we know, like regardless, depending on what your religious beliefs are, but as far as we know, at least as far as it's been proven, we only get this one shot. We're only here once, right? Different religious persuasions believe different things, but in terms of actual evidence, the evidence shows us that we're only here once. If you're only here once, then this every day is your chance to have the feelings you want to have, and it's kind of a form of insanity not to pursue those feelings. To say no. This year I'm gonna pursue kind of working longer hours and all this kind of stuff in the hope of making more money. Okay, Kyle, when you make that money, where are you going to go? What are you going to do with it? I'd really, really love to go and stand that, go to Everest and kind of be in the Himalayas. And like, okay, why don't you go there? Do you actually physically have enough money in your bank account today to do that? Well, yeah, but kind of it'd be better if the company was doing better. Like today, you have the money, right? Why not do it? There might not be a tomorrow. Right? There might not be a tomorrow. Like go and do the thing you said you'd do. Be who you said you'd be. That to me, that's ultimately the greatest success in life is to be who you said you would be. Who did I say I'd be when this happened? Go and be him. Who did you say you'd be as a father? Who did you say you'd be as a husband? Who did you say you'd be as an individual man, just living out the days of his life? Who did you say you would be? And are you being him, or are you being something else? And most of us are spending a lot of time being something else. Myself, and again, I'm going to put my hands up here because I don't want to be a hypocrite. Like these are all things. When I say these things to you, they're all reminders to me. Like I said about writing out my beautifuls and my posts, these are all reminders to me. Like, crap, I haven't been him for a while. I've started to become someone else. I want to be him again. Go and be him, even if it's just a thimbleful every day.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I mean, you're giving me exactly what I need to hear, and I know exactly what you're saying about the content is really for you, But this has been a blessing, this one, man, and I guess one more because I would love to do a series like we said, but like success is that for you yourself, when you developed your definition, did you just kind of sit there in clarity of mind and jot it down? And is that something like the first thing that you have your clients do is figure out what success means to them?
Yeah, pretty much. Um, what do you want to feel, right? And then it's looking at your life in a kind of a checks and balances kind of way. Like, okay, and it's always easier to start with what something isn't. Yeah, okay, what is getting in the way of you feeling that right now? Well, I'm working too many hours. I'm too exhausted. I'm burnt out. I'm tired. I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed. Okay, what can we do about chopping down the hours? What can we do about the exhaustion? Like, what can we do about all of these things that are actually stopping you from feeling something? They're they're the biggest bang for your buck. Most of us, again, it's that pursuit mode, right? So for most of us, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, and I'm like, great, okay, well, so thank you so much for being honest about that, Cole. You're overwhelmed, you're stressed, you're burnt out, you're all of these things, frustrated, pissed off, whatever. Great, thanks for being so honest. What should we do about that? Well, I guess I could join the gym and I could start doing this, I could start doing that. So this already overwhelmed person, this person who's already spinning too many plates, who's already juggling too many balls, the natural go-to dopamine driver is find another ball to juggle and find another plate to spin. Right? Nearly all of us do that, right? Kind of the answer to overwhelm is never ever to find more to do. Right? The answer to stress is never to find another thing for your brain to also have to compute while it's already struggling to compute these other things. The answer is to actually say, no, these are all the balls I'm going to drop. These are the plates I'm going to let break. Right? These are the things I'm going to stop doing. These are the and don't get me wrong. There's always going to be a cost to that. Your income might go down, or your fitness might go down because you're not spending 8 hours a week in the gym anymore. You're only spending, 20 minutes a day or whatever it is. Right? Something is going to give temporarily, but as that something gives, it gives you the space to then start to invest that time and that effort and that energy and that kind of sense of self back into another area. Most people are actually they're so caught in the dopamine pursuit that their only answers is more, 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 more. Add. When actually the answer to most of our problems is subtract. What can I subtract? And what am I? And then that really feeds the question: what am I willing to subtract? And then, in order to remember, the threat really is about lack of prediction and response. So once we go through the process of subtraction, we need to now do some predictions and responses about that. Okay, what's going to happen as a result of that? Okay, well, my income is likely to drop temporarily. Not, and again, it's not a foregone conclusion. It's just where we start. What could happen? Well, my income could drop. Well, okay, so what could we do so that your income doesn't drop, or we mitigate that drop, but without you having to work all those extra hours? What could we do? Well, actually, I could put my prices up. I could do this. I could do that. I could kind of invest in a different type of program that people could join, which would maybe pay me the same as they're paying me now, but require less time. So one of the things back in the day as a personal trainer, and then I carried this on in my coaching. Most personal trainers, I'm sure you're intimately aware with, we sell our training sessions by the hour usually, right? And a lot of people say, oh, don't sell by the hour, sell by the package. But it's we're kind of conning ourselves because, okay, what is the package made up? It's made up of 20 hours of training, right? Well, what I did and what I taught my coaches and what my son is a personal trainer now as well. I taught him to sell the session, right? When Mary first comes to you, she's not fit, she's really deconditioned. Her sessions might only be 20 minutes because that's all she needs, and that's all that's basically good for her, because anything other than that is going to leave her sore, overwhelmed, burnt out, and all the rest of it. Right? And so as she gets fitter and fitter, and as you're moving maybe toward a more specific goal, maybe her sessions will get longer, but sell the sessions and explain that to the clients. Look, I'm not going to beast you to death in the gym for an hour just to pad out the time, just to call it an hour. This is what you need at the moment. And so that's one way of kind of just looking at how we can approach things. We don't have to do things the way we've always done them. We can say, There's no need to do it that way. It doesn't mean that Mary pays you any less because she's paying you for a training session. She's not paying you for an hour. Time has stopped being a factor, right? If Mary buys a package from you, she's buying 20 training sessions, for example, as opposed to 20 hours. Right? And there's loads of ways that we can kind of look at how we can maintain or increase our money without having to maintain or increase our hours. We go, okay, well, I want to do these two things at the same time. I want to work for less hours but earn the same or more money. Right? I want to do these two things at the same time. I want to train less hours but get the same or better results. And once you start to look at that, that's a fantastic way of re-engineering life around priorities. Because what we're saying then is life isn't about how many hours I can work. It's about the impact, the influence, and the income that I make from it. But why do I want the impact, the influence, and the income? Because with the income, I want more fun, more freedom, more fulfillment. Okay, what are the areas of my life that are going to give me the fun, the freedom, fulfillment? Yeah. What are the areas of my life that are costing me that? Does that make sense?
It makes 1,000% sense. It's amazing. Like I said, I got a whole. I don't know if I got all these notes, man.
Wow,
really great. It's really great. I mean, as many times as I've gone through the mind mapping, and I try to teach that stuff almost daily because I love it so much. What you put out there, it's like hearing it. It's like hearing it again in a new way, and it's relevant for where I'm at. So I appreciate this, Dax. This is really amazing, man. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Let's we'll bring it to an end here because again I have so many questions for you, but like I said, I think we should do a series. But where can people what's the best way for people to get on your email list or follow you or get in touch with you for the mind map or anything else that you're doing?
Yeah, mindmapcoach.com is the main site for learning more about mind map. And when I say learning more about mind map, that's where I train coaches to become mind map practitioners, like actual neuro coaches. But the direction that some of this is going in is that one of the things I'm proudest about mind map is not that I turn out great coaches, it's that mind map itself affects the lives of the coaches themselves. That kind of once you go through mind map, your view of life is different. And so as much as it kind of previously, most of my marketing about mind map would be about how to teach you to be a better coach. Kind of I'm leaning a bit more now into the idea of helping people use mind map to create better lives for themselves that may just turn into some financially positive thing in your life in that you go, oh, I want to be a coach now. But maybe your definition of coaching might be, you know what, like I just want to be a better dad to my kids or a better husband or, and that's, to me, that's still coaching, making a positive impact in the lives of the people that are important to you, right? So we're always getting paid. It's just we're not always getting paid with cash, but we're getting paid by deep relationships with our partners. We're getting paid by close bonds and things with our kids, right? But you may be a teacher. That kind of wants to have a better impact on your kids, and that maybe the formal education route isn't kind of quite doing it, and there's something else that you need to learn about yourself in order to teach it to other people. You may be a sports coach who kind of is looking for more impact and influence that way, right? And again, the income. When I say impact, influence, and income for me isn't just cash. It's not this. Income is all the ways you want to be paid. I want to be paid in deeper love and respect and connection and hope and faith and right. So, kind of I really do. Obviously I'm totally biased. It's my product. It's my program. It's something I've invested a lot of time, effort, energy, and of course money into building. But I really believe that mind map as a kind of as a system helps people to understand themselves and their place in the world better. And because of that, it helps them to understand other people better. And because of that, it creates better relationships. So, yeah, mindmapcoach.com is a place where you can find that out. If you want to find me personally, I'm on Facebook with my mad ramblings. You can also go to daxmoy.com. My website is a little bit dated now. It's still true, but it's just a bit dated. I probably haven't touched my website in about 5 years now. So it needs a bit of a facelift and all the rest, but you can still find me there.
Excellent, man. And I can attest, guys, what Dax is saying. I use mind map every single day, and it is like the ultimate self-awareness tool, right? And it just gives you like it's an amazing, amazing tool. And like you said, I use it more for myself than anything. I love teaching it, but it's almost like a superpower because you become so much more self-aware of how the brain is functioning and your patterns and whatnot. So I can't speak highly enough. Mind map's probably like the if I had to pick one thing I learned in self-development, like one category, it'd be mind map. That's what I would go with, as far as do this, learn this.
Yeah.
So brilliant work by you and great job, Dax.
Thanks, brother.
You're welcome, man. So let me bring this episode. Let me just stop the recording here.